Hi, welcome to Grandpa's Humor again. This is Grandpa. Got another good short story to tell you guys this evening. It's about when I was a kid back in the early 1950s, growing up in the panhandle of Texas, out in the country, way out in the country. And just to give you a brief overview, back in those days, living out there, you could see for miles because it's farmland, there's no trees, no nothing. Also, we lived out in the country, so there was no grass or anything like you'd picture kids playing in the front yard or backyard in the grass. We had no grass, it was all dirt. Anyway, back in those days, kids didn't have all the modern conveniences that they have nowadays, and kind of had to figure out ways to entertain themselves without the aid of any electronic devices. And back then, one of the big things that the boys did was we played cowboys and Indians, or cowboys, good guys and bad guys, and with our cap guns and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, it's always outside and just a way for us to entertain ourselves. Well, this particular story starts with me and my younger brother and a couple of friends that lived a couple of miles down the road from us were up there visiting with us, and their dad worked with our dad. And anyway, we were playing cowboys and Indians and having a good old time. And the way the storyline always went back in those days, if you was an Indian, you got shot, you was dead. The cowboys always lived, and I always was a cowboy. I didn't want to be an Indian and get killed. So, so as a ringleader of the gang and the oldest of the four of us, I always elected to be a cowboy, and occasionally I'd let the other boys reverse their roles, and they got to play cowboy too. So we were out there one day playing and having a good time playing cowboys and Indians, and we got bored with what we were doing and decided we wanted to do something a little bit more creative. And of course, we watched all the current Western movies in those days with Alan Ladd and James Stewart and those kind of guys. Really great Western movies. And but we decided we wanted to just all play like we were all Indians, and that way we're all on the same level. So we decided we'd build a fire and send up some Indian smoke signals. And we knew that my dad had just re-roofed his chicken coop, and there's a bunch of old tar shingles laying out there by the chicken coop, and saying that he had burned a few before, we knew that they, when they're burning, they make a good black heavy smoke. So we decided we'd build us a fire with them tar shingles and make our smoke signals. Now, the problem with that is we weren't allowed to play with fire because we was only about 8 or 9 years old. And but we, Dad was at work, and we figured we could get away with it, so we started this little fire with them tar shingles and got a good black heavy smoke going. And anyway, like I said earlier, out there in the panhandle, you could see for miles, and just as we was getting that fire going good and that smoke going good, we looked down the road and we could see my dad's pickup coming, and we knew that was not a good thing. Had to get that fire out before he got there and saw what we was up to. So anyway, I told our two friends from down the road we need to throw a bunch of dirt on there and smother that fire. So we all started taking our hands. We didn't have no shovels or anything like that. Throwed that dirt up on top of those burning shingles. Well, it didn't do the job. It didn't smother it. Those shingles kept on burning through that dirt. So I told our two friends to jump up there on it and pat it down and pat that dirt down on those shingles so it would smother the fire. Well, lo and behold, of course, not thinking, we were all barefooted. In those days, when you weren't in school or in church or in town, you didn't wear shoes. You kept your shoes for when you went someplace. You didn't wear them at home. So they jumped up on that dead gum fire, and I didn't think much about it till they weren't up there very long. The next thing I knew, I looked over there. They was rolling around, and the dust was flying, and they was hollering and screaming and carrying on, trying to grab their feet. That damn hot tar it was stuck to their feet, and it was burning pretty bad. out of the way, I was still kind of panicking, wanting to get that fire out before my dad got home and we got into trouble. So I told my little brother, I said, well, throw some more dirt on it and pat it down with your hands. That didn't work either. That didn't work either. He got hot tar all over the palms of his hands. He was out there rolling around, carrying on, hooping and hollering. Dust was flying everywhere. And I have to admit, although I was concerned about my father, seeing them boys out there rolling around, hooping and hollering, carrying on, and the dust flying, the dogs trying to figure out what's going on, I started laughing. Well, that didn't last too damn long, because Dad pulled up about that time, and them other boys' dad was with my dad. They come over to find out what was going on, and they yanked them up and took them in the house and stuck those feet and those hands in cold water, which basically hardened that tar. And then they was trying to pull the tar off, and of course when they pull that tar off, and pull the skin off too. And back in those days, we didn't have all this fancy stuff we got nowadays with Medicaid and Medicare and free this and free that. You had to pay for it if you went and did it, and people tried to treat themselves. So what they did is they took and got some rags and dipped them in coal oil and wrapped those boys' feet and my brother's hands with those coal oil rags, and that's how they treated those burns with that tar. And it actually worked. Now I don't know, I can't remember how long it took, but none of them went to the doctors, and they eventually the tar came off, and they healed and did good. Now, to conclude the story, although I thought it was quite funny watching them fellas roll around there in that dust flying, my dad didn't think it was very funny at all. So they got punished by their burns and their injuries, but my father made sure I got a dose of the medicine too, and did the belt dance with me, where he holds one arm and you go around in the circle, and he's taking that belt and whipping you and make you jump up and down as he goes. But yeah, I got a good whipping over that, and I guess that's probably better that I got the whipping than the burning. But yeah, that was us playing cowboys and Indians and making Indian smoke signals. So hope you enjoyed the story, and hope you come back to see me again later. Please, if you enjoyed it, subscribe, like it, pass the word to your friends, and I'll be making more of these videos. And see you next time. Adios.